Welcome everyone to level up your online teaching with new and almost new Canvas tools. I'm grateful that you are here this afternoon. Thank you for choosing to spend some of your valuable time with this presentation, whether you are here in person, I should say here synchronously, or whether you are watching this recording. The information that's on the screen here, there's my email address, and I'd like to give a reminder of the ways that you can get support for using Canvas. We have a website called Online Education Support Resources. That's linked from the employee CRC website. There's a distance education section. And then anytime you're inside Canvas, you can get 24-hour support by selecting the help menu and choosing contact Canvas support. They do have telephone and chat options there. So they're always, those are the instructor employees, and they're always available for us to get help. What I'm going to do today is talk about the changes that have been made to Canvas since May of 2024. I picked that date because that was my last time I worked as a distance ed coordinator until January of 25. I took the fall semester off and I was doing study abroad. I know that Nicole Woolley was here, and I know that she did a great job in my absence because I did not have a whole bunch of emails asking for help when I got back. So I really appreciate the work that she did. I'm going to go through each of these. I've kind of got a screenshot for each of them on the slides in this presentation. I'm also happy to do a quick demonstration. I will comment on each of them. I think some of them will probably be pretty quick and easy, but I will also pause after each of them to see if y'all have any questions about those. If you're watching the recording, of course, don't hesitate to contact me with your questions. I'll go back to show you my email address. Of course, if you're a coworker, it's pretty easy to find me in Outlook. And the colors that are on the screen here. So the first one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 items, those are already enabled inside Canvas. So you can already use them. The next 3, the ones that have the yellow highlight, those 3 do require the instructor to take some action before they're visible to you. And then that last one, discussion checkpoints, is actually currently on hold. So that's a little bit different. You're getting some up-to-date information compared to what our colleagues got at that in-person workshop I did earlier this month. So I'm going to go ahead and go through again. I'll pause after each one to see if you all have any questions. And this session is being recorded, so it will be shared with everyone who registered, and also, of course, share it widely and via email with the whole campus. So the first thing I want to highlight is find and replace is now in the rich content editor. So anytime you're editing using the rich content editor, so that's creating a discussion or creating an assignment, creating content pages, even the syllabus page has a rich content editor, announcements too. There's now a find and replace built in. So it's a Control F if you're on a Windows computer, or Command F if you're on a Mac. This is what the dialog looks like. It is case sensitive, which is pretty nice. And what's also true is that students can see this too. Students will use the rich content editor when they're composing a discussion reply. Depending on your assignment settings, they may be using the rich content editor for that. And so that's pretty straightforward. I think hopefully know what find and replace is if we've used Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Let me check to see if there are any questions about this. Okay, I think some of these will hopefully be pretty quick like this. But again, and don't hesitate when I pause for questions. Don't hesitate to go back if you need to. Speaking of the rich content editor, another change that was made by Instructure is the comments in the SpeedGrader now include a limited rich content editor. So if you're adding comments, this is the screenshot we have here. I'm giving comments on a student submission to an assignment. It is possible to use some formatting in there. Again, a limited rich content editor. It does include find and replace, which is nice. And Instructure has shared that they have a goal of making the complete rich content editor available inside the SpeedGrader. A recent change that was made in January actually was the inclusion of the equation editors. That's one of the options there. That last symbol with the square root on the bottom row there. The things that are missing from it currently are third-party tools. So you can't use Studio inside the SpeedGrader comments or any of the other third-party tools that we may have. Okay, any questions here? All right. So I'm going to stick with the SpeedGrader, and I'm going to talk about another option, and I'll talk a little bit more about this from a teaching perspective. And that is, you may not know this, but it was already possible in the SpeedGrader to hide student names. There's a SpeedGrader options. There's an options menu or settings menu inside the SpeedGrader where you can do that. And my own experience as a teacher, I did not realize how beneficial it was in terms of my efficiency and my cognitive load when I hid student names. I know there is research and data that show that the bias that we may have subconsciously, hopefully not consciously, but we may have subconscious bias, which will infect how we give feedback to students. And if you're teaching, whether or not the class is online, if you're using the SpeedGrader to look at a student submission, of course, you think about the student, right? You see the name, you think about the students, and whether or not you have any biases, whether or not those are conscious, right? That will be part of that engagement you have with the material. And I like to think that I'm at least aware of my biases. So I'm very conscious as I'm grading student work. And so I didn't use this feature before, but then I turned it on and I immediately noticed how much more of my mental energy I could focus on giving good feedback, quality feedback to the student submission, because I wasn't having to spend any time imagining, thinking of the student, right? Because as soon as I see a student's name, of course, I'm remembering my interactions with that student. I might be remembering other submissions they've had, and whether or not that's good or bad, right? That does take up some of my brain time, my cognitive load. So that was a thing that I really liked. But if I was looking at student SpeedGrader submissions in alphabetical order, I could still figure out who the students were, right? Because I can know who my students are alphabetically. So I have that first, like their last names, whatever. And so I found myself still thinking like I would see submission and wonder, oh, this is student four. Like I'm looking at the count up there, and I'm like, oh, that's student four. That's probably right, so and so. So what they just added, or they added over the, I think this may have been in December, is they now have these options to sort, or sorry, to randomize students in the SpeedGrader. So if you hide the student names and you randomize students, that makes it even easier. When I when I use that for the first time this semester, I'll be doing that probably next week. I'm looking forward to turning it on and trying to see how that works for me. Okay, any questions on that? When I shared this in person last week, there was someone in the audience who was like, "Oh, I didn't even know that I could hide student names at all." So that's a possibility. In fact, why don't I go ahead and do a quick demo just to show you what that looks like? So when I go to the grades page, actually, no, it needs to be in SpeedGrader view. So let me pick an assignment. And when you're in SpeedGrader view, and this setting persists, I believe it persists throughout the class. So every assignment I'll do this. On the upper left part of the screen, there's a settings gear icon, and there's options. And here's the option to hide student names in SpeedGrader. I can also choose these options to randomize. So if I select randomize and click save settings, instead of Frodo Baggins, it now says student one. Oh, I guess I still have the numbers there. So, well, that at least better than having it strictly in that alphabetical order. Okay. Let me come back here. Okay. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing. I'm really enjoying the sort by date submitted. Yeah, that's also nice. Okay. Next is message students who. So the message students who function is something we access from the gradebook, and we can send a message to students who haven't submitted an assignment or who haven't, or based on their score for an assignment. That's a feature we've had all along. That's always been there in the Canvas gradebook. But what's new about this is they now allow you to message students who, based on the course grade, which I think is really great. So let me talk through that. Right. If I go back to my course and I'm on the grades page, I could select an assignment, right? Like this identity introduction, and I can select the options menu for that gradebook item. So this is from the gradebook, not the SpeedGrader. Message students who, and I could say, you know what? Let's give a student who, scored more than, what was that? What is that point? Let me go back here. I mean, that's a 10-point assignment, right? So I could say, let me give my students some scores here just so I have some numbers to play with. So I could do message students who scored more than, let's say, 7 points. There's 3 students who will get this. And now I can say, nice job on your Let's see. There we go. Hi, students who did this assignment and scored well, period. You did a nice job. Far more eloquent than I typically am when I give feedback to students. But this is an example, right? Me doing the message to students who to give positive feedback in this case. I could also go the other direction, right? I could say have not yet submitted, and I could say, this subject kind of works. Again, I might give a message saying to students, hey, you haven't submitted this assignment yet. This is again something we've had all along. What's different now is this ability to message students who also applies to, excuse my scrolling there, the total. So let's move this to the front. Should have done that before. So at the front of my gradebook, I have the total column. And the example that I shared before is I think it's in mid-April. There's some date, which is the last date that we can drop students from our class. I might maybe a week before, go here and say, okay, all the students who are getting an F in the class, ooh, that's all of them right now. But I might say message students who, and I've got these options, right? Have a total grade, let's say lower than, I'll just put a number here, 3%. Well, that's going to be everyone. Show all recipients. So, okay, well, what am I doing wrong here? I got something going on. Anyway, so whatever the something going on right here, but I could send a message to those students saying, hey, students, we've got a week before the W with a drop date. There's still an opportunity for you to pass this class. And, I might encourage you to give them those type of encouraging words. So that's something I'm excited about, this message students too from the total grade, because that can make things, make it easier for me to reach out to the students who might need some help. Again, I can also do the encouraging, right? Total students who have a grade lower than or a grade higher than 90%. Hey, you're doing a great job. You're getting an A in the class. Keep up the good work, something like that. I got a question from Rachel. Does this kind of message show up as a comment in the assignment or more like a message in the inbox? Yes, it's a message in the inbox. This sends a message directly to the user. So that's why it's even more powerful than a comment on the grade on an assignment. And you're right. The comments on an assignment for students are actually it's actually hidden. They have to click a couple times to get to it. Although there can be notifications there as well. So great. That's a great question. Any other questions about this one? Message students who? Okay. Next is a couple of options in the inbox. So this is the conversations inbox tool. We instructors only have the ability to add an auto reply and a signature. So, students can message us by selecting the help menu inside Canvas, and there's an option there for contact your instructor. Let's see what it's called. Help. I guess I'm not a student anywhere in this class. Well, for students, there's the link here on the help menu that says, right, send your instructor a message, something like that. And those get sent to our conversations inbox. And depending on how we have notifications set up, right, we may or may not get those. By default, those get emailed to the user, so we should be getting those. But we can add a auto reply. So, auto reply for maybe what we might do as professionals say, hey, I'm going to be out of the, I'll be unresponsive for a few days. I'll get back to you as soon as possible, that type of thing. I've seen instructors who have turned this on and said things like, students, I prefer that you email me directly. Here's my email address. And a reason you might do that is that the tool, the inbox conversations tool in Canvas doesn't have any formatting at all. You can attach files to messages sent there. You can, it'll recognize links, so it'll convert links, right, when you receive those messages, but it doesn't have formatting. So for some disciplines, depending on what you're teaching, it may matter that the students have formatting. A good example is the equation editor. So therefore, you might have more success getting an email. So that's another reason to turn on an auto reply. Okay. Any questions about this? Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just really quickly, Greg, do they have any plans to add that? Because that's one of the really, I like using the messages a lot rather than email because I only get them from my students and it's just, not like all the other stuff. But it's
Right.
really annoying the way it doesn't have any kind of how basic it is, or do they have any plans to add the rich content editor to it?
I know that the instructor, that's a great question. I know that the instructor developers are aware of their users' interest in having that because that's something that's a big ask in the instructor community. They don't yet have it on their roadmap. The fact that they've added formatting to the SpeedGrader, right, that limited our rich content editor they have in the SpeedGrader, I think is wonderful, and that's a great that's a great step in that direction. So I think that they are working towards that. I remember hearing them mention that the resource load that the rich content editor uses a lot of resources, and so that's kind of partly why it's been limited so far. But if they're finding a way to include it like in the SpeedGrader, then I think that they'll probably include it in the inbox too. Thank you. The next option I want to talk about is the assign to option. The next option that I want to talk about is the assign to option, which allows us to control access to modules or content pages or ungraded discussions in a way that's similar to the options that we already have for graded discussions, assignments, and quizzes. With those tools, we can give differential access to the graded assignment, right, for individual students. So we might say, have a student who's going to, I'm going to give them an extended due date for the assignment because for whatever reason. So for everyone, for example, the assignment's due on March 10th. For this one student or this group of students, I can say, you know what, I'm going to give them an extension until March 17th. That's one example. We can also now do that for ungraded discussions, pages, and modules. But the difference is that modules, the assign to feature is only for the specific students we give them access to. In other words, there can't be one date for some students and one date for the rest of the students. That's for modules, but for ungraded discussions and pages, we can do that. So let me talk through what that looks like. So here is for module 1, I'm going to click on the options menu for it, and I'm going to go to assign to. There's a tab here that has settings, and what's nice about settings is it'll tell me what the date is. So in this particular example, I have a module that will be available to all my students on March 10th, but I have a couple of students who want to have early access to the module, and I'm like, that's fine. So let me go ahead and select that assign to, type those students. I'll give it to Sam and Frodo, and I'll hit save. But before I hit save, let me go to the settings page because remember, those students want early access. So I'm going to give those students early access on March 3rd. So now when I hit save, and then I'll come back to this dialog to make sure that it's stuck. So this module will be available on March 3rd, but only to these two students, Sam and Frodo. When March 10th rolls around and I want to give module access to everyone, I'll have to basically hit this button here, clear everyone out, make this available to everyone. I don't need to change the date, right? Because it'll be March 10th at that point, hit save. So I'm looking forward to a time when that assign to from modules includes the differential access, which is already there for graded stuff, but is also now there for content pages. So let me give you the example. In this case, chapter 1, I'll go to assign to for this content page link from a module, and I'm going to say, yeah, for everyone, it's available, right? I've got the module dates there, but for Frodo and Sam, I'm going to say for Frodo and Sam, I'm going to give them early access. Okay, make this February 25th or 26th and hit save. So this particular content page, that was chapter 1, is now available to, there it is now available to everyone when it's available, but then Frodo and Sam are going to get early access on February 26th. So students who are traveling or have some reason, right, to not be in class or participating, there's some reasoning there, similar to what we have for assignments and other graded items. The module thing, what I particularly like, I think the best use case that I would use it for right now is, let's say I had a module that only had material where students who are, in some special group of some kind, only they need access to that. And I think the example that we came up with, I shared this during the presentation, was, let's say I'm teaching, I'll stick with my own discipline, I'm teaching history, and let's say that I'm teaching a history class where I have a group of students who are taking this class they're all high school students because they're doing the early enrollment, right? That students can do in high school. Dual enrollment is what we call it. And let's say that I've got a reason for those students in that group to, I know they're studying together at the high school. They've got guidance from a teacher there. So I might create a module and I might call it resources for ring bearers. Okay. And then take this module. It's going to be at the bottom of the page, of course. And let me just put a quick content page in there so I can at least have something to play with. Okay, so let me publish that. So here's an example of a module, right? It's got some stuff in it, and I only want some of my students to access it. Here's where I would use this assign to for the whole module, is I would say, okay, let's take this assign to, and I know the only people who are in this class that have been ring bearers are Frodo and Sam. And I hit save. And now when my students come to the modules page, right, only those two, this view, the assigned to, only those students can see this module. It won't be there for the rest of the class. So there's a reason there, right? I'm sure we can come up with reasons in our classes to do that. All right. Knowing that I will edit this video recording to clear up my own confusion as I learned. Any questions about this feature? Okay. Next is the announcement until dates. This is also a change that was requested in the community. It's been there for quite a while. Is on the announcements page, we can add until dates on announcements. So if I go to an announcement, I can edit an existing one, but I'm gonna actually create a new announcement. And I might say something like, it's scholarship season, right? We get these things via email from other folks on campus who have things they would like us to share with our students. Hey, students, check out the Los Rios scholarships available to you. And there'll be some link to goes there, right? Now, when I make this announcement available to my students, I know that scholarship, the deadline is, and I'm going to say March 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I know that in this particular example, it's scholarship season. There actually is a deadline. I think I may have the time and date wrong, but if I'm going to share this information with my students, then I might decide to attach an until date. And I'm going to go ahead and say March 2nd at 5 p.m. And now this announcement is in my class. It will be, students will receive a notification. They have that option to do that. But when they, after this date and time, right, the until date that I have, there you go, until March 2nd at 5 p.m., it will be, at that moment, it'll disappear from my students, so they won't see it for that reason. Okay, any questions on that? All right.
Will it stay in your announcements?
Yes, it will say my announcements. And in fact, why don't we edit this announcement? That's a great question. So why don't I say until, not March 2nd, but I will say January 25th at 5 p.m. And now it is an expired announcement, right? So if I go back to my student view, there it is, this scholarship season, right? So if we go to student view, they should not see the scholarship season announcement. And I can tell they can't, right? Because you see here posted on January 25th, right? We're already past that date. So it's invisible to them, but to me, it's still there. And so I'm going to do one last check to see if I get an indicator from this view, if it's expired. No. So I'd have to basically view the scholarship. I'd have to view the announcement, or I'd have to edit. Yeah, I'd have to view it to see available until January 25th. Right. Great question. Okay. I think our next one might be a feature preview. So these are discussion summaries. A feature preview, and I'm going to turn this, I'm going to open up a window where I can demonstrate this. So let me talk briefly about the feature preview process in Canvas. And to one extent or another, all the things I'm covering today are examples of, well, they are all examples of the Canvas development process, the process that Instructure uses. This particular one called discussion summaries is a feature preview. And what that means is that Instructure has developed the code, right? They're like, hey, we have this thing. We want to get some feedback on it. Does it work for you? Does it help your students learn? And we're going to make it available via this feature preview process. When something is a feature preview, that means that each Instructure client, so this is not us as individual faculty, this is the folks who maintain the system. Well, we have colleagues at district offices do this. Each of the Instructure clients, then they can decide whether or not to make the feature preview visible to their users. And they have the option to enforce the feature preview, means it's automatically on, or they have the option to let the individual users turn it on or off, right? So that's where these feature previews are. These are things that we as individuals can decide whether or not to turn it on or off. The decision was already made. We have a process district-wide where I, as your representative, your advocate, I go and I meet with my counterparts across the district. We meet with the IT management, and we have discussions about, how soon to turn these things on. At some point, Instructure may decide, hey, we really like this feature preview. We're going to make this switch, and boom, we're going to turn it on for everyone. They don't get a choice on whether or not it's on. So that's a process. That's part of the process. Depending on the particular feature, right? Things will happen or not happen. And I'll tell two quick stories about where there are features that are kind of in different directions in the sense. One is the Instructure in the discussions and announcements redesign. So this was a feature preview for a few years. And then last summer, Instructure decided this will no longer be an option and we will enforce it for everyone. So what we did in Los Rios was in between spring and summer of 2024, we forced the discussion redesign on everyone in Los Rios because it was going to be forced on everyone in mid-July, I think, anyway. And we don't like to make changes, during the middle of the semester. So that was an example, right? It had been a feature preview for a few years. Instructure had been collecting feedback via the community, and then they decided to turn it on for everyone. They have another thing that they're in the process of developing called New Quizzes, and the New Quizzes is a new quizzing tool. It looks different. It acts a little bit different than the classic quizzes tool. That is a feature option. It's a feature preview that Instructure currently has no plans to enforce. Because there have been a lot of backlash from users about the changes, and they've gone through there have been some challenges with their development process internally, right? They've had different people manage the project, that kind of stuff. So that's the thing I wanted for you to be aware of the feature preview. And then there is a way, and I'll get to that. Actually, when I get to the end, I'll talk about how you can get advanced. There's like another advanced feature preview before you're using it with actual students in your classes. Okay. So what discussion summaries does is basically summarizes discussions. It's an AI tool that Canvas has that we can then, for each discussion, we decide whether or not to turn it on. And it summarizes the discussion. Students cannot see it. And it allows us to regenerate the summary. We can also ask it to focus on a particular topic. So I've got a screenshot here, but I'm going to try to show you what it looks like live. And I'll show you how to enable it as well, right? So the first thing is to enable it. So this class here, and these are dummy students, there's no activity here, but this is an actual class with actual students in it. And I'm going to try to do this without showing you my students' names. So on the class settings page, one of the tabs is called feature options. And this is where we can decide which features to enable. So for example, like here's new quizzes, right? That's a feature option. I could turn this off if I wanted to just in this class. You can see I've already turned on a discussion summary. it's labeled as a feature preview. Yeah, that's good, got a little bit of description of it. So I've already turned this on. Let me show you what it looks like to actually turn it on. So I'll come into this class, feature options, right? And there's discussion summary. It's currently turned off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And so now I can summarize the discussions in this class, but there aren't any discussions to summarize. So here is my feature enabled thing. And there's a summarize button on the discussion. So when I click this button, it should take a few seconds to summarize. In fact, it may already be there. Let me scroll down slowly. There it is. Okay. So here is a summary of this discussion. For your context, I have my students compare interpretations. They use our textbook and they use one of the lectures and they pick a topic and they compare their interpretations, right? So they're choosing what to compare. I'm just giving them the sources they're using for comparison. And what I like about the discussion summary is I can use this to help me figure out which of the topics my students are most interested in, right? Of course, I'm reading all their posts because I'm giving them feedback. But the summary thing, instead of me having to take notes for summary, maybe, right, this will help with that. And I can see here, right? So in this case, this topics included, this was the Europe, Africa, and the Americas up to and through the Columbian Exchange in 1492. So I might say, no, let me learn more about the transatlantic slave trade. Transatlantic slave trade. I want to see what my students said about that, right? So I'll click the generate summary button here. And in a few seconds, there we go. So it's got, right, this information that's there as well. So it allows me to do some interrogation of my discussions. What's also true about this, and I put this on the slide, is it summarizes each group discussion separately. So if you divide your class into groups for discussion purposes, then in my class this semester, I'm teaching 2 sections of History 310. I cross-listed them, so I've got one Canvas course with 90 students. That's way too many for a discussion because that could be 180, right? If all my students do the assignments and they ask them to reply. So what I did is I divided my class into 6 groups of 15. So I have 6 different discussions to look at, right? And I've got the same students, they're interacting with each other throughout the class, so that's good. But what I learned when I was preparing for this presentation was that summary tool does not summarize the whole discussion. It summarizes each of the group discussions separately. Christine asked a question, does the summary feature work on video recordings in the discussion? No, it's just grabbing the text. It's whatever they type in the thing. So it does not grab, yeah, that would be a great, in fact, I'm going to write that down as a request because I'm not sure I've seen that written, is discussion summary include the transcript of videos. That would be great. Any other questions about this or about the feature preview process? We're going to see that at least one more time. Okay. Next is the Smart Search. Students can see this when it's enabled. And what Smart Search does is it adds this box to the page. It adds a link in the course navigation menu that allows users, so it's us and our students, to basically do a natural language search about the content. So it is a feature option. So to enable that, again, I'm already on the settings page, feature options, Smart Search, there it is. And click enable. There's no save button when you're doing feature options, but I do want to refresh the page. And when I do, I should see a Smart Search link somewhere in navigation, and I don't. All right, well, let me go back here. Go to navigation, look for Smart Search. There it is. I think I need to move it a little bit and then hit save. Okay, so I just moved it, then I hit save. And there it is. Smart Search link is on the left. The first time I click on a link, I may not see this here because I've done this off and on for this particular class. You may see a green box at the bottom that says I'm indexing. It's not there, so that's great. So Smart Search, it should be the things that are searchable should be limited to the individual who's looking at it right now. I'm the instructor. I have access to everything. I should see everything. So let me look up information about cotton in the 19th century. And it does not grab information from video transcripts. I already know that. It does not grab the information from files. So it's only the contents, the Canvas stuff rather. So we'll grab information from content pages. It'll grab information from, let's see, well, you see these are all pages. There's an announcement. It's got information. Okay, see this delete me. That's a page that I created and I gave myself a reminder to delete delete this rather. But I'm the instructor, so that's okay. There's an announcement as well. There we go. There's an assignment. So it's grabbing information from the assignment description. And these are all links that I can click on. I can give it feedback and say, this is a good search result. This is not. Now, you may notice that I typed in cotton in the 19th century, and it's looking for these words separately. So why don't I, and I don't know what well, there's a how it works button there. If I put quotations and marks around this, will this make it any better? I don't know that it does. Not really. Okay. So let's check this out from a student's perspective. If I put on view as a student and I look at the modules page, right, the student should not have access to any of the 19th century stuff because, well, this test student user hasn't even done module 0. So, right, this is all inaccessible to them. So if the student goes to Smart Search and they say, cotton in the 19th century, search. Yep, they found nothing. So that's good. This is my first time testing this from a student view. I'm glad to see that that part works. So again, the Smart Search is a user, it's a feature option. So if I decide I don't like it, I need to go back to settings page and then go to, actually, I need to do two things. One thing is I need to take it off the navigation menu. So let me disable that, save my changes to the navigation menu, then go to the feature options and turn off Smart Search. And the reason why you have to do it in that order, I discovered this the hard way, is the Smart Search link will still be visible to me. So you see it's down there. But if I click on it, it'll give me a message saying access denied. And it takes a little while for Canvas's caching in the background. This has to do with how the websites are set up. As I got a response to the question I asked about this in the community, that eventually that will disappear, right? But so that's why I share this. If you decide to disable it, it's important that you hide it from students first and then disable it. If I do it in the other order, then my students will get on that access denied. They'll get that access denied link, right? They'll get that message and they click on it. Of course, I don't want that. I don't want my students to run up against any friction. And I think I put that, yeah, if you disable it and remove it from the course navigation menu first, that means it's in development. And again, this is a good example of what feature preview means, is that Instructure's developers are using that to help us and to kind of discover whether so maybe help us discover what some of the bugs are. Okay, any questions about that? All right, I've got two more. Oops, I went the wrong direction. Two more things to talk about. One is Khanmigo. Khanmigo is a creation of the Khan Academy. If you don't know, if you haven't heard of the Khan Academy, it's a free online tool to help teach people all kinds of stuff. It started off as a math tutorial service to help students there's videos and quizzes about help students learn math, but they've expanded and they've done a lot of things. Last year, they announced they partner with Instructure so that Canvas instructors, Canvas teachers can have free access to these various tools. I'm going to show you how to add it, and then I'll do a very quick demonstration. And that is to add it. You may have seen this when I was going through the menus before. It's not a feature option. It's actually on the course navigation menu. And to add it, I go to navigation. I go to the bottom of the page where it should be. Oops. At the bottom of the page, there's Khanmigo Teacher Tools. All I need to do is enable it, hit save, and it'll appear on the course menu for me. Students do not see this. They don't have access to the Khanmigo Teacher Tools. They can go to Khan Academy on their own and access stuff there. Um, but what this allows us to do is it gives us a whole suite of tools, and they are AI powered, and they will allow us to kind of help create stuff. The example that I used last week that I like to go ahead and repeat is I'm teaching history. I like to give my students formative assessments, right, little quizzes to help them make sure they've got the basic understanding of the facts. And there is a quiz generator. Here we go, multiple choice quiz. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to do a quiz on the French Revolution. Actually, why don't I do cotton in the 19th century? U.S. history of the Cotton Kingdom. Sure, that sounds great. All right, grade level. I want college. Give me 4 options. That's fine. And give me 5 questions. And it will go ahead and create some quiz questions. Okay, I can change it. That's great. This tool needs your expertise to be excellent. Yep. Great. It's reminding me that because it's AI generated, it might have errors. And here are the questions and my answers. Now, I would, of course, go through these. I would check to make sure they're correct. Let me assume they're correct. And I'm like, great, I want to use this as a Canvas quiz. The export options don't include Canvas quiz. I can export it as a Word, PDF. You can see Google Drive to Microsoft OneDrive. So I would still have to take these. If I wanted to use these questions, in other words, I would still have to then go create a Canvas quiz on it. There are ways to find some conversion tools for stuff, and I'm happy to share those. Reach out to me for questions about that. But this is an example of some of the stuff that the Khanmigo tools are include for us. Earlier today, I had someone ask me a question about about rubrics, and so there are rubric generators here. What they're missing, and I hope they add, is a way to get some of the stuff directly into Canvas. But in the meantime, it's there for us to play with and to maybe get some ideas on how on our own course design and other things in our classes. Okay. Oh, and I did mention here, I forgot to mention this, that second bullet point, it does create a Khan Academy user account for you the first time you click on that link, the first time you click on the link once it's added to course navigation. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, so I've got one more thing to share, and that is a long requested item where we can have different due dates for the replies to discussions in a graded discussion, right? In my class, I use this. I've got a discussion I mentioned, right? I have my students compare interpretations. I have a due date for their first post, their reply to the prompt. And then there's a second due date, which is a reply to their classmates. And I have those due dates staggered because if I only have one due date, right, students will wait until the last minute and they won't have anyone to reply to. So I like having that staggered due dates. I've got a way that I've worked it out with Canvas, and I and other users have said, hey, Canvas, hey, Instructure, it would be great if you could do that. And they created it, they added it, they call it checkpoints. So I was all excited when I was in Europe last December. I was in Germany, and I was all excited about the checkpoints. And I found a checkpoint and I tried to enter it and I tried to use it, but unfortunately it was closed. Um, and I see Joan smiling. Thank you. I hope that was a humor at my joke. I tried this in person and it totally bombed. And I was trying to work in Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin. Okay. Anyway, so here's the story with checkpoints. They did enable it. It was going to be made available on January 18th. We were going to turn it on a few days later. Remember the feature option, right? It's available for clients, and then the local root admin decides whether or not to make it visible to users. And we were just about to enable it when we saw, and I was part of this, seeing a whole bunch of consternation in the Instructure community about a change that was made to the SpeedGrader view of discussions. And because of that, what Instructure basically did was they bundled 2 different changes in one release. They had the checkpoints, which is great. It does work. I mean, there's some things that could be better with it, but it does work. But because they bundle this other change with it, it's how we view student replies in context in the SpeedGrader when we're doing feedback. That was a second change that people have been asking for, but they didn't make those separate, right? They kind of bundled them together. They didn't make they even tucked the SpeedGrader change. It was just a note in the broader change about checkpoints, and they recognized their mistake, which is great. So they've actually pulled it back. No one can use it right now, except we can on the beta instance. So I'm going to show you and talk with you about what that is. Beta is a instance of Canvas that we all have access to. Instructors do, our students do not. And beta basically is a snapshot of what's on our production instance. Production is where we interact with students all the time. It's where we probably spend, all of us probably spend almost 100% of our time there, probably most time there. But beta is a snapshot. So once a week, beta gets updated. And what that allows us to do as instructors is we can go to the beta student submissions and all that kind of stuff will be no longer will be no older than a week, and we can go and do anything we want to. We can blow up stuff, we can change stuff, we can add students, we can blah blah blah. Doesn't matter what we do there because students don't get any notifications, they can't log in, and it gets refreshed in a week anyway. In addition to that, the beta instance is where we can get a sneak peek at what's coming likely to Canvas. And for us right now, beta is where we can check out the discussion checkpoints. So how do we get to beta is we basically take our Canvas course. So I'll go back to my home page to make this a little bit easier. Let's see if I can enlarge this. No, that doesn't change it. We basically take the URL for Canvas. So it's for us, it's lrccd.instructure.com, right? That's how it always begins. And insert the word beta in between lrccd and Instructure. So lrccd.beta.instructure.com. And then, right, the course link is there and everything. So when I go to this address, it may require me to log in. It does. Great. I'm going to log in with my teacher account. And I'm now in the beta instance, and I know that I am because at the bottom of the page, there's a pink bar that says Canvas test installation. This Canvas installation is only for testing and will reset every week. Great. So now I can go to the settings page for this course. Again, I'm on the beta instance. And if I go to feature options, it's not a feature option because it's already been enabled, right? It's there, it's turned on for everyone. So now I can go to a discussion. Let me go there. And I'm going to go to one of my graded discussions. And I'm going to edit it. So before I enable checkpoints, I'm going to highlight a couple of things and then I'll turn on checkpoints. One is it's a graded discussion, right? You see that. It's worth 40 points. If I go back to the discussion and on the discussion itself, I select the options menu and I say show rubric, right? And I use the rubric for grading. So what I'm used to doing with grading discussions is if you look at my rubric criteria, I have two criteria that are the initial prompts, right? The initial reply to my prompt. And then I have a third criterion, which is peer feedback. So that's how I've done the grading, right? And this way my students will know, right? If they get fewer than 40 points, they can look at the feedback and they say, oh yeah, I need to do the peer feedback. So I want to make sure I point it out because when you enable when you enable checkpoints, currently it prevents you from grading using the rubric for grading. In fact, I'm sorry, let me show that too. Let me be better. So you saw the rubric, right, with the criteria. So now when I go to SpeedGrader and I want to give a student feedback on their post, right, all their posts will show up in this view here. I can say view rubric, and I can say, okay, yes, 2 paragraphs, right, but he only included 1 paragraph of evidence, hasn't done the peer feedback yet. When I click submit assessment, it automatically scored the grade. This is why I love grading with rubrics. I do this all the time. I can just click, hit save, right? And it gives them that score. So I'm going to keep that in mind because now when I enable checkpoints, that will kind of partially be taken away. So that's something they'll hopefully improve. All right, so I'm editing, graded discussion, and I'm going to assign graded checkpoints. As soon as I click that, you see where it says points possible 40? As soon as I click that, that's going to disappear. And now the points possible is 0. Where is it? Right there, right? And how I edit the points possible is I tell Canvas, all right, I want my students to get up to 30 points for replying to the initial post. I only require one reply, and that was going to be worth 10. And as I'm typing numbers here, you see how that changed, right? So I've done that. And then also I need to change the due dates. So the reply to topic in this case is going to be, I can't remember what I said, but I'll say January 31st. And then the required replies are going to be due on February 5th, right? And I'm good. I've got the May 16th end date. That's fine. So now when I hit save, I'm going to show you what the grading looks like, and then I'm going to take you to the student view. So now when I grade this with checkpoints enabled, open in SpeedGrader, right? Rubrics do not auto-populate grades for checkpoints. That's good for me to know. So I have the rubric there, but now I need to give assessment. Why can't I do the assessment? Because this student hasn't posted anything yet. All right. So basically what I would see is I would see a separate grade item for, points for the replies and points for the reply to the prompts and points for replies to classmates. Let me go back to that and let's take a look at the student view. Here's what the students see is they see there's a button up here that says view due dates, the link rather. They click on that and it tells them when those are. Also, when students are on the modules page, they will see that was history versus history module 1 right here, right? So this automatically appears. They see on the modules page, there's a reply to topic due on this due date and required replies. They only have to do one due on that secondary due date. So it increases the visibility, hopefully, of this information to students. Again, currently not available inside our production environment, but we can explore and play with it on beta, as you can see here. And let's see, let me go ahead and do one more thing. Let me post something. I hit a reply button. Okay, I'm just going to grab some lorem ipsum and paste and hit reply. So that was the test student posting a reply, right? So let's leave student view, and I should see that now when I do my SpeedGrader view. There we go. This is Frodo, that's fine, but you can see here, right? Reply to topic, grade out of 30. The status is that, whether or not they're late, and the same thing is separate from required replies. As I type scores in, it's automatically adjusting that current total. Okay. So again, not available now, but we can explore with it on beta. I'm happy to, of course, answer any questions. I think this is really neat. I'm looking forward to this being enabled because I like my students getting that additional reminder right on the modules page. And also I like the ability to grade those things separately. I'm looking forward to the rubric being part of that being available. All right. So I've reached the end of my thing. I've shown you all the things. Any final questions about anything that we covered?
Greg, a real quick thing about the checkpoints that you were just showing us. If they
Yeah,
keep it the same, is this a correct understanding? If they keep it the same, you can still have a rubric in there. You just can't check the boxes for points in the grading rubric. You just have to
correct.
give them a certain number of points and they won't see what the breakdown is. If they lost any points, they wouldn't see what it was for. Is that correct?
That's right. So what I would do here, here's the test student, right? I would give the students a score, right? So in this case, they've done the first one. They haven't done the second one. I could view the rubric and I could click here, but that's not going to change the score. So if this were available right now, I would use it, but I would actually take away the rubric because I don't like having to click extra. To me, this is extra clicks. I don't like it.
Oh, yeah, but from the student's perspective, actually, they would see how they got graded in the rubric. You just have to separately put the total in. It's just that it won't automatically use your rubric clicks to put in the
That,
total.
that's right. Yeah. In
Oh,
fact,
okay.
yeah, because of course I want my students to know what I'm looking for, of course. And how I would do that instead is I would take the rubric, and this is going to be really icky because I would do this better, but I would basically copy and then I would include the rubric as part of the prompt. Right. So I basically put it right here I would fix it and make it look a little bit better. So that way my students would see the rubric, right? They would see what I'm looking for, but it would save me the pointing and clicking. You're right. I could keep the rubric, and because what I like about grading with rubrics, in addition to the points, is it allows me to add. There's some. I put comments in the rubric, right? I have an explanation for what that level within that criterion means, and that explanation in effect serves as a comment, right? I don't need to. I find myself I type fewer comments because I like to have detailed rubrics. So in this example with the graded discussions, there's some. Um, I still have to figure out how I want to best dedicate my grading time and effort. Yeah, great question. Oh, thank you for choosing to spend some of your time again, whether you're with me live or watching the recording. Um, the recording I'll share with the folks who are here live. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you explore how to best use these new Canvas tools to support your students.